I'm the festival director. I'm the festival director of the Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival. This year we go into Melbourne and Brisbane also. We are at a crucial moment in history with the technology that has brought about artificial intelligence at our doorstep, in front of our faces all the time. And let's start talking about exactly what that means. This is a panel which was brought about from two perspectives. First of all, this year, we received a couple of submissions at the festival that openly employed AI, and we'll meet the filmmakers in a moment who submitted those films, involving issue for creators and what they've done with new technology. Second of all, I thought that science fiction has a long history of exploring the concept of artificial intelligence in its narratives, perhaps most famously in 2001: A Space Odyssey, but also such iconic works as Blade Runner and Terminator and The Matrix, or the Steven Spielberg double Minority Report, and of course AI. It seems fitting that a sci-fi festival should discuss AI and the impending singularity now that it is becoming a reality. I've got four people together who are infinitely smarter than I am and who are going to discuss some of the ethical issues facing the creative community, and some of the broader, I guess, perspectives on the world that we are about to live in with artificial intelligence. I'm going to introduce them, and then I'm going to ask them to give a brief perspective on their relationship with AI as it stands right now. Let's first go to Vladimir Todorovic. He is one of the directors who I mentioned previously. His film Algo Dreams is one of the official selections for the 2023 Science Fiction Film Festival. He's a filmmaker, an artist, an educator based in Perth. He works with new technologies for immersive and generative storytelling. He's been supervising PhD students since 2018, covering topics such as digital art, film, game design, interactive media, and generative arts. Vladimir, thank you so much for being part of this panel. Tell us about your relationship with AI.
Thank you, Simon, for inviting me to be part of this panel. It's a great pleasure. So, as you said, like I'm an artist and filmmaker, and I've been using different technologies in my work. So, I think like even in '90s, when I was studying painting in Serbia, I started using some microcontrollers and algorithms to drive my video and film work, and then around 2009, I did like a couple of generative animations or generative films in which I would write a story or kind of generate a story based on some systems, and then I would write computer code to create animations. So then I did one project VR project in around 2016, in which I used one of the machine learning systems to also generate parts of the story. This was a project called Running Nude, and it was a VR project in which, like, yeah, the AI system was used, and most recently with the Chat GPT, actually it was GPT-3. I used 3 different AI systems to make this film called Algo Dreams. Yeah. So I use AI as a tool, as I used maybe camera or a brush, but maybe like with AI there is like a lot more to talk about, because it involves politics and ethics, and it involves a lot of people, not only artists in his studio. Yeah.
Now we're touching on what we're all here to talk about. That's exactly right. I want to introduce Moiteza Halimi. He directed A Robot's Dream, which is screening at our festival as well. He's a visualist, a design expert. He's been involved with evolving technologies in film and animation, and of course, most currently AI, as you can see in the wonderful film A Robot's Dream. He questions how we perceive and connect to them, or does he? Moiteza, what exactly is your relationship like with AI at the moment?
Hi, Simon. Thanks for the introduction. As you said, like I've been playing with, I guess AI came out like a long time ago, but in terms of more like apps that you get to take your picture and it changes you, makes you older or younger, that kind of stuff. So I was experimenting with them a while back, and then I just would take frame by frames and make myself look older, and then make like a little video out of it. So then it just opened up a lot of doors for different ideas, different stories that I can experiment with, and it was really easy to do, like visual effects like that. I guess take a long time. You need a big team to create anything like that, but experimenting more with that, and now with the AI technologies coming really far from where they were even 6 months ago, then I was like, oh, I can actually make like bigger and higher production value movies and short films and animations. So that's where I pushed through and tried to make something that has a proper story and a narrative, not just a clip or like a reel. So which came out to be a robot's dream. But at the same time, I guess because I've been making films and writing before that, I thought if I'm making a story that uses AI, it has to be kind of about AI. Like there has to be a reason for me to use that medium. It has to give the story a depth. So that's where that short animation comes from. Like we see what the AI sees. So I guess it plays on that a little bit. Yeah, and I guess more about me is that I'm also practicing as an architect, but that's my day job, which I haven't tried to use AI for that yet, but I can see that eventually, AI will be everywhere, just beyond film and television, and yes.
Two incredible filmmakers there. Let's move to someone we call an ethicist, I guess you could say. Stephanie Antonian is director of Aestora, a UK-based private creativity house. Previously, she worked for Google X, DeepMind, NASA, Google, Accenture. There's an incredible lineup of industry frontrunners that she's been a part of. She focuses on frontier technology and its impact on human behavior. Her essays are extraordinary. Do go to Aestora to see her work. She's written some essays called Blueprint for an AI-Powered Time Machine, Modern Masochism, The Exquisite Pain of AI Ethics. These are some of the things she writes about, and it's an extraordinary website to visit. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining us. What's your relationship like with AI at the moment?
Oh, thank you for having me. So I have a good relationship with AI. So a bit like Vladimir was saying, I think AI is amazing when we view it as a tool for humans, and when we view humans as sovereign, and don't get caught up in the hype of viewing tech as something that's going to dominate or control us. And I think that AI is just another avenue that's going to lead to the same answer that we get repeated with every field of study, which is that maybe actually love is the answer. And so we hate that answer, so we make everything much more complicated. So before we used to do a lot with words and stories, and that wasn't good enough. So then we moved to numbers and economics, and that wasn't good enough. And now we moved to computer science and AI, and that wasn't good enough. So we moved to quantum, because we want to overcomplicate it. But ultimately, everything ends up pointing to, or maybe we should be nice to each other, and maybe we're not that bad. And that's the point that we switch. So basically, the essays that I work on, everything is really looking at love. And so what would time travel look like if you applied love to it? Or what would the world of AI ethics look like if you applied love to it? What would the issues of ChatGPT look like if you applied love to it? And the fundamental question that I'm looking at is, how do we use AI to move humans from fear to peace? Like emotionally, because that's one of the biggest problems we want to solve. We want to be more peaceful, loving people, and it's hard. And if you look at a lot of what's happening in the industry right now, most of the conversation is dominated at AI is going to be bad, and how do we make it less bad? And that's the whole conversation. But we haven't really spoken about, well, what would it take to make AI good? What would AI for peace look like? And so that's the type of stuff that I look at.
This is exactly why we wanted you on this chat, because you've got this extraordinary perspective on what AI is. And let's get to our final panel. Richard De Coverlo, he's a board member here with us at the Science Fiction Film Festival, an award-winning filmmaker. He's worked in film and design. He's been an illustrator, a graphic designer, an art director. He's at the forefront of some of the coolest looking films in the space at the moment in his work as a filmmaker. And he's done this incredible design work that you see me standing in front of before, the man behind our logo this year. So welcome, Richard. What's your relationship like with AI? And be nice.
Cheers, mate. Thank you for that lovely introduction. As you said, like, I've got my foot in two creative industries, and they're two highly competitive creative industries that are at war with AI at the moment. If I was to speak as a designer for a second, as a graphic designer, I use a lot of my suite is the Adobe suite that's been introducing a lot of the AI tools. So my day-to-day, I've been actually experimenting with those tools. And while not perfect, I can see the benefit of AI as a tool. And I'll probably, when I do weigh in, I think I'll be repeating that, AI as a tool, because it's being lost on a lot of people. And a lot of people in positions of great power and influence that think that AI can be replaced by people. And only the artists themselves are saying, no, we're not replaceable. But this is where the conflict is coming, because I have had peers and colleagues myself being in this situation where I have been confronted by certain clients with, being replaced by AI. And it starts to feel like a piece of science fiction that I'm living in. So while we're looking at it, and while I saw the benefits of using it, again, as a tool, and, I remember when Midjourney first came out in the beta stages, I think we were all a bit amazed about how how AI can generate such work. But then when it was discovered that AI has to come from somewhere, and considering you've got the wide world of web, and we've all got our personal photos and works of art on there that we share, yeah, that's where AI is sourcing a lot of these images. And unfortunately, AI in the hands of the wrong people, it starts to actually affect other people. And so we're starting to see a lot of people lose jobs, struggling to pay for the rent. So I'm very conflicted by it. I see the benefit of it being useful as a tool, because AI is not going to go anywhere. But at the moment, it's a huge ethical and moral minefield. And I'm seeing it from, again, both creative industries. And that's the creative industry. So where if things aren't drawn and an awareness is created and we're educate ourselves, where's it going to go after the creative industry, outside of our industry?
We're at a point now, I guess this is where maybe Tessa could jump in. Are you two the Oppenheimers here? Are you used to sort of using this amazing new technology and not quite sure where it's going to lead you, but you're willing to indulge, not indulge in a bad way, but you're willing to let it drive your creativity and be part of who you are as an artist and an innovator, but there's consequences further down the track that maybe aren't as obvious as they probably should be?
Well, as I think, as Vladimir and Stephanie said, and Richard as well, it's like AI at the moment is nothing more than a tool, really. So if like I did try to, like I had a story, and I did try to use ChatGPT to brainstorm ideas and all that, and see if I can, it can help me improve the vision, but it didn't really help me in any way, because it was always giving me something quite conventional, like the most conventional story ever it would give me. But I guess as a storytellers, that's where humans stand out, because the story is supposed to be, we're supposed to break the pattern to make a, you know, a new story. Whereas I guess AI just tries to follow the pattern that existed before. So I lost my train of thought. What's the question again?
No, that's okay. Well, maybe Vladimir, you could weigh in on
Yeah, I
the
was going to
position
ask
we're
also
at.
that question. What's the question here? But yeah, I mean, recently I was at this festival, animation festival, Annecy in France, and I think it's a huge festival with a lot of animators still doing. I mean, they're interested in character-based animation and great storytelling. And I gave a talk around this subject of using AI. A lot of people see it as like a kind of like a shortcut, like for like real creativity, like human creativity. So instead of like drawing like painstakingly like 24 frames a second, like they would do in Disney, and now you can just come up with like a nice prompt. You become a prompt artist. And then this prompt, depending how you prompt the system, it will give you like a lot of maybe boring results or like a lot of interesting results. Depends on you as an artist. But there was a lot of resistance in the audience, I would say, and people would kind of talk about AI as a new thing that's going to steal our jobs. Something similar was going on in like in 19th century, like 1800s, when the daguerreotype was invented. There is this famous lithograph in which you could see all the painters, artists committing suicides, hanging themselves because they're going to lose their jobs. Photography was invented, and people would start to talk about photography as not really like an art form made by humans. It's something made by machine. You just have to kind of press a button. And by pressing a button, you're not doing any art. So there was that kind of resistance from the animators. I even had like, one student approached me after the lecture. He was quite, emotionally touched. So he almost started crying how this new world is coming. And I kind of, I believed him. Like, this new kind of age of creativity, the creativity that's going to change is going to be different from what it was before, I guess. That's
Give me a
I don't know if
perspective.
that answers the question.
No, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. Stephanie, give me a perspective on the creation of art and the role of the artists and how they interact with AI. And the broader ethics that you see as being central to this issue.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting conversation. When you were talking, Richard, I was like, I got a lot to say. But basically, AI curates, but it can't create. It can't create something new. It can only give you the likely summary of what it's consuming, or predict the next statistical, the next word that's most statistically likely to come up. It's not going to create something big. But the challenge is that the narrative around it can be really destructive. So one of the most amazing things about humans is our ability to create. And in fact, like, for you to live a life of dignity, there's something that you're doing that only you can do. And that's your contribution to the world. The problem is when you bring in tools like AI, the AI tools that exist now, and you allow other people to bring in a narrative, and it's people, not the tech. Like, the tech's not telling you that this is going to replace your job. It's people hyping fear around. You knock the confidence of creators. And if you really want to bring amazing creations to the world, you need people with high self-esteem. That's the number one thing you need. It's not big tech, it's not any of those things. You need people who will believe in themselves to express their uniqueness to the world, and that takes a lot. So most people in the creative industries are already battling inner demons to be like, am I actually good enough, and can I do this? So when you start pushing this narrative that is you're so irrelevant that this rubbish tech can just obliterate you because what you're doing is so basic and not unique, it can get people to the core. It can cut them to the core, and it can shut them down and turn them off, that they stop trying. And that's what I think the biggest issue is, which we don't discuss publicly, or privately. Sorry, like the conversation is just not being had about what does this do to our self-esteem and what does that mean. And so we, you know, in the world, like there's actions, and under actions there are thoughts, and under thoughts are emotions. And we say we're living in this super rational world, and we're really smart and we're hyper educated, and there's all this intelligence out there. But what we're not paying attention to is what's underneath those actions and what the emotions are. But the algorithms have worked it out. The systems have at least subconsciously worked out. If you make people feel bad about themselves, you optimize faster. If you get people to, if you get creators to feel really bad and not do something, you become more important. Like you like, it will go, the solution you give, or the art piece you give will go further, and you'll optimize for whatever goals somebody's set for you. Or on it, take Instagram, for example, like if you make people feel bad about themselves, they'll stay on it longer. Like that's just the nature. It's not trying to be mean, but it's just very few people are paying attention to the emotional reality that's happening. And so that's what's causing havoc. So we're not paying attention to what is the emotional charge of telling creators and artists and stuff that your work is so useless, tech can come and take it. And how, and we're not looking at ways to support people through that process to say, hey, believe in yourself, and start exploring how this could be a tool to make you more you, to express yourself even better. So that those would be my top thoughts on it. Let's take it to self-esteem. Yeah.
Morteza, Vlad, do you have a response to that? Or Richard, I should drag you in here as well. Was there an element of that rang true, or that you
Maybe
can...
I can just comment before I forget.
Yeah, of course.
I forgot. No, but yeah, I mean, like, you know, as Stephanie was saying, like I was always interested to have systems that could be customized, that could like kind of generate millions of, you know, different versions of the story, or video or audio, and then I can kind of curate them, and I can edit and work with them. And now I think with these new developments, machine learning and AI, like I'm really kind of able to do it. You know, I'm able to generate stories that are that kind of make sense, and that look like, you know, they're real kind of stories, like they have 3-act structures. But recently I was in Pilbara working with some kids in an Aboriginal community, and working like with animation, with paper puppets and hand-drawn stuff. And yeah, there is something when you in this creative process that kind of makes you care for the material you make, you produce. And with AI, what's going on, like, is kind of like, you know, you're just entertained with like this system that is quite powerful, and that can generate like all kinds of worlds in a very short period of time. So you, as an author, you're becoming like, I don't know if people could say that about photographers in the 19th century, but you're becoming kind of a bit lazy, you know. Painters would painstakingly paint, and then, you know, you can generate so much stuff in a very short period of time. Recently I was like, it took me like, yeah, like for this movie, it took me maybe about a month to work with 3 different AI systems to generate the material. But I spent another month coloring my material, just like coloring the scenes, doing color correction. And after 1 month of coloring my film, I deleted all my coloring and just kind of used the AI previous colors. So yeah, it's quite complicated actually. I don't know if that adds to the conversation.
Maybe
Absolutely,
like the other point I can add is that there are instances, unfortunately, where AI can and is taking jobs away from people. Like I have friends, like I know people who they have to create like a pitch document for something they want to take to the producer. Previously, they would hire illustrators to, you know, do like a concept design of the characters or the location. But now, I mean, because pitch document, they don't make any money. It's just you do it for free to get something made. Now with the AI, especially because they don't really have to, I don't know, like in a pitch, you don't really have to copyright stuff just yet. So with AI, they just do the illustrations right there, and it's faster, and so they don't have to hire that person anymore, which is like I can see it replacing some of the jobs, unfortunately, which is not good. And then the opposite side of that is like Vlad said, I did have another animation made before this whole AI things come out, and it was like a 5-minute animation. It took me 5 years to create, because animation is just not easy. But after this new tech came out, like I had another story, and I tried to utilize these new tools, and I did the 14-minute in 6 months, which is like quite a lot and it's just for one person to create that much animation. So there are two different sides to like using this tool. Like it can help some people, and at the same time, like Stephanie said, it could be taking jobs away from people and be quite distressful for those who are losing it.
Yeah. Stephanie, you're biting your lip there. Did you want to say something?
No, it's just no, I mean,
maybe I can say something like a lot of people feel that the jobs are going to be taken, but there is also like the whole economy of people working in terrible conditions, working like machines. It's called like post labor, and and then like in places where in developing countries where people work like hours just to kind of create data sets that are going to be used by big corporations. So there is like a new economy which is just increasing inequality and then creating like small number of people really rich, and then the huge number of people just become more and more like machines, so that's some are losing the jobs, as Morteza said, like people are also working in this economy.
And does that fall at the feet of AI? Is that something we should be? Are we at a point now where AI has
like these systems that exist today? They're really good at doing one thing. They can play chess, or they can generate images based on text. But behind all this are mathematical formulas and algorithms that just make the system just do one thing really well. So so depending on the data, depending on the design of the system, you'll have that. You'll have a different outcome, different result, and different problems. But these problems mostly come from us, from humans who are like designing the systems and who are continuing to exploit them in order to gain profit, nothing else. So power.
Yeah. So I'd say on that, like you can't blame the intangible concept of God for what religions have done to and you can't blame the intangible concept of AI for what humans are doing to it. Like one of the most destructive things about AI right now is the market incentives that are happening. And when it comes to the creative industries, the bigger question that needs to be asked is what is the creative industry trying to achieve? What do film studio or studios want to achieve? What is the goal? And if people are being honest, the goal is quick ROI. So that's not about creativity anymore. So then in that case, like, quick, like AI systems and stuff will replace certain jobs because the goal has changed. The job you wanted to do isn't there anymore. It's just about getting things quick over the line that can just about be bearable. And get people through the door, but it's not about expressing the capacity of human or what's amazing. And so the financial incentives that are playing out in this and that are pushing really aggressively, pushing the tech to be implemented in ways that don't really make sense, like really aggressively, have to be acknowledged, because you can change the tech all you want, but if the actual motive is I want to make more money with less and drive inequality super aggressively, and it's like zero-sum game now, then they're not going to pay the creators properly anyway, because they're not actually looking for creation.
Well, this is the point I wanted to make, and Richard, I wanted you to weigh in on this, because have we created this, zeroing in, specifically on the film industry and film storytellers, have we created this monster for ourselves? Are we only, are the striking writers and actors and producers only now realizing that we're at the mercy of this beast called technology that we've created?
To be honest, like it all comes from the human being, really. It's not AI, like exactly what Stephanie says. I mean, each of you, Morteza, Vlad, Stephanie, it was nail on the head. And the reason why we're having this conversation is this discussion needs to happen. And it needs to happen, and this education and awareness, so people understand. But also it's what I mentioned earlier in terms of like, these company and studio bosses, these executives, a lot of these people are not creatives. They do not understand working with creatives or what goes in to all this work. And in all honesty, some of these people don't want to know either, and their only motivation is time is money. So it's faster, cheaper, better. What happens with that? Well, you end up, just pumping out all this kind of work. But what dictates the work? What dictates the machine? It always comes back to the person, the human being. Audiences are going to get tired of this machine. And while what we're seeing now with these actor strikes, the writer strikes, animators, like Vladimir, the point, I think each of you, including Morteza and Stephanie, each of you touched on people working like machines, being overworked, being paid below wages for the work that they do. I know what that feels like as well. I've been on that end sometimes, Fortunately, I'm a freelancer, so I can, I see the end is nice. Some of these people feel like they're in a prison. They're locked into that. They've got mortgages. They've got families. And yet they're under this pump, and it starts to really wreak not only havoc mentally, but physically and emotionally, and it's draining. And what happens when you're running? I'd like to say you're running on fumes, but some of these people have got nothing. They're empty. Your creativity is lost, and then your soul is lost. And I think at the essence, whether you believe in that theory or not, AI it's in its name, it's artificial. It needs the creator behind it. It needs that kind of tool. It needs the soul. It needs the engine to run it. And that comes to people. And this is what, what we're seeing here is that a lot of these executives and these CEOs and managers and these people of influence and power, they do not understand that. And it's creating a lot of fear amongst the industry, amongst people. And it's something that is actually being felt, and it's sending these shockwaves, not only in our industry, but out of it. Could you all entertain me if I just read one of my favorite movie monologues from all time? Simon, you touched on it, but I've got to read it because it is so relevant, because when all these strikes started to happen, this monologue from one of my favorite movies kept echoing in my mind, and I found it so relevant. So I'm not going to do a Jeff Goldblum impression, but I'm going to read this line and just really pay attention to the words, right? So it's from Jurassic Park. It's Jeff Goldblum plays Dr. Ian Malcolm, all about chaos theory. And he says, if I may, I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You read what others, sorry, 1 second. You read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, So you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could. And before you even knew what you had, you patented it and you packaged it and you slapped it on a plastic lunchbox. And now you're selling it. You want to sell it. That's where we're living at the moment. So again, it's not the tech, right? It's the people with the power, with the money that have the tech and think they don't need you, they don't need us. And that's a huge problem. So we're kind of living through a digital epidemic.
Vladimir, can I throw this to you as someone who has, in your role as a teacher, an educator, and someone who works with the next generation of people who'll be adapting new technologies and AI in various forms that we can't even imagine yet. Is what Stephanie imagines, is what Stephanie is gearing towards achievable? Will there be a point in time when the more enlightened or optimistic amongst us control this sort of technology?
That's a very difficult one, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, one thing I've been asked this question, like, what's going to happen to young creators, and they're worried as well, like, what's going to happen to our creativity? How are we going to approach making art? And what you can see, like, if you just go online and look at any of these like websites that showcase AI generated art, you can see a lot of really similar things. It's often like kind of male dominated group, and it feels like these artists are becoming more and more kind of lazy in their work. They're not curious enough, they don't want to explore enough. Any result that is kind of that is generated is yeah, they don't have like much of kind of yeah, they don't have much of like relationship to that outcome. Like the outcome is like they don't kind of care about it, and I don't know, maybe that's something that kind of we have to be wary about. If you open Chat GPT now and the playground, the first links that they provide you with is like plan a photo trip in Iceland. Make ChatGPT plan your trip in Iceland. So everyone is kind of going towards this very convenient future where you don't have to think much about your trip to Iceland. You don't have to organize it, and somebody else will. And it's not only for like trips or traveling. It's kind of like interacting with AI on a daily basis. We all do all the time. So how is this going to affect us, and what's going to happen to new creators? We don't know, but like you could see that the effects of social media and that whole era are huge. Yeah, you can see that on our students for sure.
Stephanie, you created Aestora to give your more positive views a voice and give it a platform. Same question to you. Is there a new generation, a next generation that's going to adopt that as their primary goal going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Just on Vladimir's point about taking the photos in Iceland, it's like ChatGPT's data is 2 years old. So the people who are going to lose the fastest are the people who are trusting this tech a bit too much. Because you can do that and you stop thinking and you didn't even realize that you didn't see any of the new good stuff. And so it's like, be careful who you give control to, because even with the big media companies and film studios, going down this route of weird incentives means that they will destroy themselves. Like, we know the pattern, like that is not one to lean on. It is a system that will combust. And so it is inevitable that there will be people who reject that narrative and who work on their own creation for their own joy. Like, when you really can get into a creative place, it's a joy. It's one of the joys of being alive. The process is a joy. Like, even when I write essays, it takes me a day to write the essay, about 3 to 6 months to edit them, that it makes sense to anybody else. And people say, give it to ChatGPT, blah, blah. But it's almost like I'm not allowed to say, even though it's really hard, it's the biggest joy in my life. I don't want ChatGPT to do it because it's giving me something intangible that I can't explain. And so there will be creators who will say, I wasn't doing this for the incentives anyway, so I'm still going to do it. And they will start coming together, and what they will create will be interesting and exciting, because another thing that AI can't do is tap into this intangible resonance that we have with something that we know someone suffered for. It's like, I went to this talk from this author, and she said she loves editing because it's like the ghost of what you cut out is there. So even Vladimir, when you talk about how you change the colors, and it is like, in a weird way, it's almost like people can feel that there was that effort there, even though it went away. And we don't have the science behind that yet or whatever, but just there is art that speaks to us from the pure passion of the creators that we don't understand, but we're amazed by. And that's what we're looking for, because creativity is really about awe, like inspiring awe in people. And we want that. That's what we marvel at. That's what we remember. And so I think it's a wonderful time. Like, actually, I think it's like, in some ways it's a terrible time, because also, to Richard's point, the only way this won't crash, the system won't crash, is if it destroys enough people's self-esteem and basically holds their hands behind their backs, convinces them to remove all parts of them that are human, behave like a machine, run down what it means to be human, and then be like, this machine is better than you because we took away all your amazing capabilities. So if you recognize that that's happening and you have an ability, you know, people do need to make a living and stuff. So it's like, it's even a luxury to even consider doing something on the side for joy, because also one of the other tactics is make everything much more expensive. But I think it's an exciting time, because it's getting so bad that people are having to shift out to say, what's going on? I don't understand this. I'm getting depressed. Like, I'm feeling miserable. Like, everything's losing meaning. So what would I create if I didn't have to do something for incentive? Like, what could I do just side of desk, like a couple hours a day, that's just for me, that's just expressing who I am in some creative form, and what would that look like? And just going down that way. And so somebody posted to the question of just, you know, about self-esteem and what can be the solution to this problem, if any. And I say the solution is know that you're great. Know that you're amazing, like that humans are amazing. You have this wonderful capability, and a lot of the negativity that you're getting isn't about you at all, or what's possible, or your worth, or anything. It's a system that's struggling and dying, and a huge power play in negativity, and we've over-indexed on super negative stuff constantly. And so I would be looking into things that can bring you back to yourself, and grieve the reality that who you might be giving authority to might not deserve it.
Yeah.
And that you might now have to stop being lazy in certain parts and actually think to yourself. And I say that with a smile on my face, because it really took me a long time to grieve it, because I did not want to do that. It's like,
yeah,
where can I give
leave me my laziness, please.
Yeah, I'm like, we love it. Like, no, yeah. So that's what I say to that.
Wonderful. What is it? Can I come to you for a second? You mentioned at the top of the chat that your chat, I shouldn't say chat. You mentioned at the top of this talk that you created a robot's dream from the perspective of the robots. Can you ever see, and that's sort of the space you work in when you're working with AI. Is there a narrative you can envision where you use AI to tell a purely human story?
Actually, I'm working on a new animated project, and like, my background is that I'm from Afghanistan, and there are a lot of things happening there which is not being told like as a story. It's always just on the news. It's not something that people can feel. It always comes out as numbers, you know, and there's no emotional connection not as much as there should be for people to understand what's happening there. So I'm trying to, like, I have another project, and it feels like it has to be made really quickly. but I'm doing my best not to use AI for that. But if it becomes necessary, because again, animation taking a long time, I don't want this project to take 5 years to come out, because the issues happening there are quite immediate. Again, like, I'm trying not to use AI for this project as much as I can, but if it becomes necessary, because for me, I mean, the film is quite important. If it becomes necessary to finish it faster, then I think I will have to use that tool to give the message out. So that's where it could, where AI could be necessary to tell a story instead of it being about AI. Yeah.
We're nearing the end of our chat. You've all been so generous with your time, and I just want to put one final question to all of you. It's a science fiction film festival that we're working with here, and it's about looking forward and looking at future times and future places. In a world where AI is used conducive to the goodness of man and the goodness of humankind, where are you in 50 years' time, Richard?
50 years?
Let's say 20.
Oh, look, like I said earlier, AI is not going anywhere. So I still am conflicted, but I see it as such a necessary tool to not only understand, but also to really, develop a discipline, just like with any kind of craft, like each of the filmmakers, Vladimir Morteza, I mean, you guys have started like any other artist would, in creating something, and then you use AI as you would with a paintbrush. There comes a discipline and a thought, and you're doing what an artist does, and that is to explore. Where AI goes into the wrong kinds of hands is someone who takes the lazy option out, and just generates a prompt and then sits back and goes, yeah, I'm an artist, that'll do. It's like it doesn't start or end there, so I can actually see the benefit of it, but it's difficult for me to actually see where this is going. I can only see what's happening now, and then in a retrospective way, seeing how history has this way of repeating itself, but just with different mediums. Vladimir, you put it earlier where when the camera was introduced and everyone freaked out, and it was just like, that's it, all these artists, we're losing our jobs, and it's like, well, no, that's just another medium that we can do, and photography is great. And the other thing is combining both mediums, and then you create something new. We see it with special effects where people cried with CGI, but CGI on its own has its limitations, and CGI works best when there is a practical element. I mean, look at how amazing we've got with motion capture. Motion capture can really sell. I mean, you've got something that, the machine that is all these Marvel films spitting out the quality of work and running their poor artists and animators to the grind. And the work there isn't just to that quality that even those artists are happy with their work, because they can't take that pride. But then you've got something like Avatar 2 that breaks the mold and creates such leaps and bounds, but it took a decade to make. And in doing that, created a new technology. It's that exploration. So, in a couple of years, I'd love to explore and see where things go. But at the moment, it's really hard it's tricky to navigate these waters. So creating more discussion is what's needed.
Vladimir, what about yourself? 20 years from now, if AI has gone the way you hope it goes, what do you think?
I like what Richard said. AI is not going anywhere, So I think like in 20 years, we're going to be interacting with AI. more and more, and similar to photography, like you have like so many uses of photography today. So I think a lot of the times, yeah, we kind of almost use artists as kind of scapegoats for something that is different. The AI, the use of AI systems today really are so powerful, and they're changing us, the way we live, the way we interact with media, and yeah. So I feel like in 20 years, hopefully we're going to be working together with AI, creating some not so cynical stories about. I know Stephanie was mentioning something about love in my film. Just to mention something about my film, there is one story in which two bicycles fall in love. This is a story written by ChatGPT, and yeah, so it's quite romantic, not so cynical. Also, flamingos are saving the planet, and lots of really wonderful, like kind of yeah, imaginations of AI that are just our own, basically, what we believe and what can happen. Yeah.
Monteza, the AI world will live in 20 years from now. How do you envision it?
It's interesting because we're talking about the creative industry and how it's affected by AI, but kind of like, because I've been reading quite a bit just leading up to this talk, and it feels like there'll be a whole paradigm shift, like not just in our industry, but everyone's lifestyle is going to change slightly. Soon we're going to have a generation who doesn't know what life is like without AI. Like right now we have the generation who doesn't know what life is like without social media, which was quite different back then. So in 20 years, I actually don't know, like whatever I will say, but I think it's just hard to imagine where this is going. The only thing I can say that it will probably change things irreversibly, but which direction, whatever, hopefully, like Vladimir said, something more positive, which I'm planning
I
for
thought
that.
that was the most negative here.
No, not at all.
I'm smiling, at least. I'm doing it with a smile. So.
Of course. Is that smile generated? I'm not sure. I do want to finish on Stephanie's point of view on where what her ideal world 20 years from now will look like with AI as part of our lives.
Well, I mean, my ideal world in 20 years would be a society where people are able to understand what their talents are and have the resources, like emotional and financial, to be able to express them safely. And that's sort of the most dystopian future I think we could hope for, to be honest. But, I went to this talk once. It said, imagine a child in your life, and then imagine them, and it's 10 years have gone by, and you're walking to their house, and then they open the door, and what's the tech there? What life do they live? What is their experience? And I thought, my nephew will be 13. I just want him to open the door with a smile. Like, that's actually all I really want. But I don't see the tech that we're building for that. He's going to be in his room on a headset, totally disconnected. Probably the house might be crumbling because everything's getting really expensive. And we're going down this different route. And what I hope is that there is a paradigm shift where we start changing the way we're using technology to accomplish what we really want, which is freedom, not bondage. And so I'm hopeful for that. And then I think anybody like listening, the reason why we don't need to be scared about it is that all it takes is for us as individuals to just realign our own like hearts and goals and expectations and what we're willing to believe and listen. And that's enough to sort of make a change. So it only has to be one person at a time to make a huge shift. And so we don't need to get the message of this isn't to be overwhelmed about technology or anything, but to just always remember that you already knew the answers and it felt weird because it was wrong, and you're allowed to just believe that and live that life.
You're all incredible people. Thank you so much for your perspectives, your insight. Stephanie Antonian, Vladimir Todorovic, Morteza Halimi, and Richard de Cavallo. We'll put all their social details and all their websites in the details below this, wherever you're watching this. So thank you so much for being part of the Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival chat on AI, and use it well going forward. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.